Welcome back. It's Brian Bott here with another exciting episode of the To Be Fit podcast. Today we have nutrition expert Mike Doehla here to break down the latest in nutrition science and how you can level up your health game. Mike, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. This was a fun ride over.
So how far a ride was it for you? Where did you come down from?
So I came from New Windsor, New York, Orange County, about 60 miles in New York City. Took me about 2 hours. So I'm hyped to be here. I love in-person stuff. I need some in-person adult interaction because I hang out with my kids all day long, all the time.
Now I hear you. I was excited because when I first, usually if I'm interviewing someone who's not local, they're like, oh yeah, sure, I'll hop on and we'll do it through Zoom. And you're like, nah, I'm taking a ride down. So I was pumped. But all right, so catch everybody up, right? A lot of my listeners here might be local to my area, might have no idea who you are. Obviously, people in our industry know who you are and know what you've done. But for those who don't know you, give us a quick little background, where you started, where you're at now.
Yeah, so I started in the nutrition industry kind of by accident. I was kind of a hobbyist to the fitness thing. I was working in human resources, had no idea what I wanted to do in life. I thought working in a field that you enjoy that also helped people, where you happen to be good at, was an impossibility for me. So my original thought was I'll just train people in my garage. I sort of sold out in a way and went CrossFit. I didn't really follow CrossFit methodology, but I knew it was relatively easy to get certified and relatively easy to start a business with a CrossFit name. Nobody really cared because I was in the Northeast in a cold garage. It wasn't the cleanest garage. There was a lot of really nice CrossFits around me. So that didn't go well. So I pivoted, which is like the startup term, right? Mm-hmm. I pivoted to online nutrition. My coach was Trevor Cashy, who's like a genius in the industry. Pretty well known with our colleagues, but not really a big name per se. He was like a 23-year-old PhD. He's like, you could coach people. So I started talking stuff online. It was really at the tail end of the paleo movement, where I think people were ready to have a little bit of sugar and a little bit of processed food. Now I feel like the pendulum is swinging again in the wrong way. But I just started talking online, got a bunch of clients. 7 years later, I ended up selling the business to the parent company of Anytime Fitness. And now I'm 42 now. I retired at 40 to just play dad. And that's it. There's a lot of stuff in between there.
And the in-between is what we'll get to, right? Cool. So, as you started, just to give everybody the scope of how large that company was, how many clients were you servicing, at its peak?
We had 50,000 lifetime, but we were anywhere from, 5,000 to 6,000 active on the roster. Yeah.
That's a long way from the cold garage and worrying about if CrossFit was going to knock on your door with asking you for money.
Yeah.
All right. So bridging into the online gap, I think when you were doing it, I mean, everybody's coaching online now, right? Yeah. That is like, if you go on Instagram, Facebook, anywhere, it is come join my online coaching program. But you were kind of the first one to do it, I think, at that scale, at least that I was aware of. So take me a little bit out through building that. Like when you started working with clients, you talked about just talking online. How did you gain that momentum, right? Because this was before, I think, Instagram ads, Facebook ads, and you had to actually get, I think it's called results.
Yeah.
And so walk me through that, how you were building that.
Yeah, so it's a funny story. Because I was in the CrossFit world, I was judging at, do you remember Festivus? It was like a offshoot kind of CrossFit,
I think it still unofficial. Goes on. I still get ads for it, yeah.
So I was judging one of the competitors. Her name was Cindy. She was a local gym owner. She had a strength and conditioning gym. Became cool with her. She was the first person to give me a shot at coaching someone. I was just giving advice online, like, hey, you can have a little bit of cereal if you want, ideally post-workout, focus on macronutrients, overall calories. You have to eat the right amount. And at that time, it was like paleo was so big, but it was kind of on the downfall. And everyone was so over hearing just eat real food. They wanted to be human again. They wanted to have pizza night with their families. They wanted to drink alcohol. They wanted to have a little bit of this stuff. So I just started talking about it. She gave me a shot, and this wasn't typical, but in about 6 weeks, she went from having a little bit of belly fat to having visible abs. And that, as you know, in this industry, like these results sell. There's a lot of controversy about it now. People are kind of weird about it. We can get into that if you want. But she was well known in the local area. So when I posted her results and she was sharing it, I got a bunch more people from her gym. I became the nutrition guy of all the local CrossFit gyms in the area. And then it started to spread online to other connections that I made specifically through the Complete Human Performance Network. I was being coached by Alex Viada and his crew. And I had friends in those circles who had gyms, and they were just following me and seeing me say things that weren't that common at the time. And it was obviously working. And a lot of these CrossFit members and other gym members were finally getting results. And I think that's what really set it off, because these people were paying so much money for training, trying to buy the results and the health and the performance, and they were kind of falling flat. And then the nutrition piece comes in to these gyms who have such tight-knit communities where like John knows Cheryl and Cheryl knows Cindy and Cindy knows John. And then my email just started blowing up. And I don't know, man, it was one of those things that I was like, this is too good to be true. This is going to blow up in my face. So let me be a monster with this and kind of be like a lunatic in terms of like my attention, my customer service, and thinking of, don't think about what people need in terms of nutritional science. Think about how do you like reverse engineer the dieting process, thinking of all the barriers that are in these people's lives and creating the solutions for those barriers and just sliding it right across the table to them, or virtual table, because everything was online. And
and I think that you were probably in a good sweet spot because, you know, the communities that you had access to, you eliminated one huge variable. I don't care anybody's opinion. Usually if you're going to CrossFit 3 or 4 days a week, you train hard.
Yeah.
So it's not an effort issue. This isn't like, well, maybe we got to get them to, like, they're probably training hard, or if they're going to a strength and conditioning gym. So then being able to come in and push that one next block over that they needed to really succeed. Like you're saying, hey, these results aren't typical if you're starting for someone from scratch, but for someone who's busting their ass 4 or 5 days a week, and then they layer that on top, it can make a huge difference. So what do you think like made why you said, hey, people were ready to make a change, or they were seeing these things that were too strict. They were ready to try to eat a little bit more normal. You know, what kind of information were they getting that they just weren't succeeding with?
So for the most part, people's issue, especially in like the CrossFit world or like heavy training world, is like they have all this data with their fitness stuff. They could tell you everything. They could tell you mile times, squat numbers, burpees in 5 minutes, all this crazy stuff. But they have no idea how much they're eating. They always kind of label it, right? They would slide into our email and say, I eat well, I eat healthy, but I'm not seeing results. And in my head, the alarm goes off and I say, okay, well, how many calories does healthy have? What does the weekend look like? What is your perception of healthy versus what is actually healthy? And when we got them to track their food and eat the right amount, it was magic for these people. Which is why I still stand by tracking for almost every individual. It's people's problem from where they are to where they want to be is a lack of information. And if you're not tracking your food, you're just guessing. You're just another person with an opinion. And unfortunately, that opinion has led you down the wrong path. So when we fixed that, my God, people would they would call us magicians because everything they've ever tried didn't work. And I'm not saying I invented tracking food, but we invented a system that at the time there was nothing like it. And the community that we had, people were just so fired up to help each other and do this thing together.
And it's never been more easy than it is to track now. I remember when I first started coaching people, when I would follow like these old, you remember Alan Cosgrove had a program called Afterburn? It was like one of the first ones that I saw that was specifically like a fat loss program.
Right.
And like I had to go in and like with a piece of paper and a pencil and then look up if I wanted to eat this food, how many, and write it all out on a notebook. Yeah. There was no like app for tracking it, but not to jump ahead, but I think it fits right here, is that one of the questions that came in when I was looking for people to ask for this podcast was, how the hell did you get that many people to willingly track their food? Because I think a lot of coaches struggle with that, right? It's like, hey, I want you to track your thing. Like, nah, I don't want to do that, right? And you know, you're sitting here, and I completely agree, saying like, all your results hinge on doing that. So were there any practical tips that you could give coaches that you guys use to really help make that process easier or get clients through that initial hurdle of why that's so difficult?
Yeah, I get real excited about this because that's the problem. Coaches will ask like, hey, do you want to track? And people are like, no. And it's like, they're like, oh, okay, let's try something else. And then they just default to some version of like eat clean. And again, it just comes back to, okay, I'm eating healthy and I'm not getting the results. Why? Because you're probably not just eating healthy. You're eating too many calories. So the problem that coaches have is they don't know how to sell the value of tracking. And the value is, for years you've struggled with your nutrition. You haven't gotten where you want to be. Why not just try it? And the biggest hurdle for most people is it seems harder than it is. Like you said, with these apps now, it's easy. It just takes a little effort, and it's not much more effort than just putting the healthier food on the plate. You might just put it on a scale or in measuring cups before it ends up on the plate. And when people try it, they don't really know how to do it. So coaches need to walk them through it. And this is possibly a customer support or customer service issue for coaches. They don't want to walk people through it. They get one barrier from that client that says, that's too much work. I don't want to do it. And we're all kind of told as coaches that we have to make this as easy as possible for people. But I don't necessarily agree with that. I think we have to meet in the middle. Like, if this is really, really hard over here and this is really, really easy, what's the middle ground? Kind of difficult, but worth it. And when you have the people do it, they learn how to make their meals the way they want to. And you could give them resources. We had videos on like how to enter a full day of eating. And most people's hangups were like, I need 50 more grams of protein. Oh my God, I planned my day. How am I going to add another meal? It's like, no one ever told you don't have to add another meal. You might just need a few more ounces of chicken in the 2 meals you have planned, or whatever it is. And finding people's individual hurdles and solving those problems was the way. So like coaches that hear, I don't want to track. Like the answer is not, okay, I won't let you track or I won't make you track. It's, well, what's the hang up about tracking?
There's no difference to me. And like, they wouldn't do it with their fitness.
Yeah.
Right. If you came in and they're like, hey, we're going to learn to squat. And they're like, I don't want to squat. They wouldn't just be like, all right, well, we'll do this. They would ask a question.
Right.
They'd be like, well, tell me why don't you want to squat?
Yeah.
If they say, well, it hurts my knees, they might say, well, let's take a look at how you do that.
Right.
Maybe there's a different way you can squat that doesn't, there's really no difference. Like the skill acquisition for it to be useful has to be up on the edge of ability.
Right.
If I give you something and you could do it 10 out of 10 times, there's no learning. If I give you something and you can do it 0 out of 10 times, there's also no learning.
Right.
Like you're saying, if I know I did my job, you should be failing a little bit at this in the beginning because we're right up against the edge of your ability.
Right.
And that's how we move forward. And I think a lot of people just feel like, I'm going to have to do this for the rest of my life, or I'm going to have to do this forever. And they do dumb things that make it a lot harder to track. Right. They think that when they get started, I found this breakfast on Instagram. I'm going to make that for breakfast. For lunch, I found this 17-step smoothie that I'm going to make. And then for dinner, I'm going to log on to TikTok and there's this person I really like and I'm going to make that. How do I track it? I'm like, you can't, like it needs to be simpler than that. So like trying to show them how they can actually execute on that is the problem. Like you said, it's not, you never just dodge it and like, oh, you don't want to track? Well, let's try something else. It's holding their hand through it and trying to eliminating friction is a lot different than just avoiding it, right? Yeah. If I can make it easier for you, like you said, with guides and videos and how-tos, then that's super helpful. But just to ditch it is a huge mistake.
And you mentioned something I think is so profound in the tracking community, that people see these recipes and they want to make the recipes. And I'm like, at least for the beginning, quit the recipes and just do dominant macro foods. Like season your chicken how you want it seasoned. Add some rice, add some potatoes, add some vegetables. Because the more variables you throw in, the less likely you are to be accurate with your tracking. And a lack of accuracy usually means a lack of results. And a lack of results means your customer or client is out the door. And that client that fails your program can never refer anyone else, because what are they going to tell people? The program didn't work. It could be their fault. It could be poor coaching. It doesn't matter. What matters is your business isn't growing because you didn't change anyone or give any value. And I think as coaches, you just need to dig deeper. And I don't think it happens enough in the field.
Yeah, I think the one thing that you touched on as far as like, hey, leaning into macro dominant foods is the other skill set that we like to use with people is, listen, if you're just tracking it throughout the day and then going, oops, I'm 100 grams over, or I'm 50 grams under for protein. And look at that, I ate 50 extra grams of fat. I stink.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, no, like sit down, you have to sit down and log what a day might look like for you. Or even at worst case, do that one time and then, okay, well, that's not going to work. What changes do we need to make? And with the way the world works right now is everybody wants to be an expert or good at something the first time that they do it.
Yeah.
And I try to tell our clients, like, listen, you're asking me to teach you how to play the guitar right now, right? You don't even know what the strings are or where to put your fingers. Like, you're asking to play Beethoven, like after week 1.
Right.
If you want to be able to make these meals and go out to dinner and have a good accuracy, those are all skill sets we can learn. But like G chord right now, like I need you to do that. And then as we do that, we can build on some more chord structures and be more fluent. But they want it all. They don't want to go through that pain of that.
Right. It's a learning experience, and it could be a pain in the butt at first to try to plan your day, because you're going to say like, well, I don't know what 5 ounces of chicken looks like and like a cup of rice. You have no idea like what that looks like or how fulfilled you'll be with it. So you do have to log it, eat it, test it out, and make adjustments. And the problem with like that, good coaches and good programs, the problem they face is the clients come with so much dieting baggage and false promises from the competition, where they'll be like, oh, you could lose 10 pounds this week. So like where our clients were spending like 1 or 2 weeks learning this stuff and maybe not getting great results, they're like, well, I lost 10 pounds on Weight Watchers last year. Why don't I just do that? And it's like, well, now you're here. Weight Watchers didn't teach you anything, or whatever the program was, didn't teach you anything. You're still here. Let us like unpack this stuff and potentially be the last nutrition protocol you ever need to do.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of my favorite quotes about, that we try to use in the gym sometimes too, is like, we want to be the last coaching service or the last gym that you have to join.
Yeah.
Because we fix some of these things. When we're looking at how do we get people to do it, right? What are some things that you found in the beginning that were really helpful? Because I know, especially with, I'm not a software expert, so anything I might be outside of that or coaching on that large of a scale was like, hey, we need to get people some wins here in the beginning.
Yeah.
So what were some things that you found to be super helpful to kind of like get people through that first 30 days of like, hey, they need to see some results kind of quick, because if they don't, they might leave.
Right. So yeah, for most people that we worked with, it was weight loss. And the funny thing about weight loss is we want it to be fat, but a lot of our clients, like if the scale moves, they're satisfied. And you could get the scale move with water retention reductions. So you could reduce carbs a little bit more, and you need something like that. And that's where I push back on the industry as a whole right now, because everyone's like, don't rush results. Don't worry about it. Let's move slow. And I'm like, yeah, but slow equals your program not working in the eyes of a customer. So you don't have to starve them to give them results. But if they want weight loss, you should probably see that within the first couple of weeks. And if you're not seeing that within the first couple of weeks, there's probably something being done wrong. Whether that's your coaching, maybe you gave them too many calories, probably not that. It's probably the person is not as accurate as they think. So that's another opportunity to find where their wins are. But you can have anything. You can have like, okay, your step goal, or you were getting 4,500 steps. Can you get 7,000? There's a win. You were drinking like no water. Now you're drinking water at every meal. Like that's great. You weren't going to the gym, because we didn't train, but we did monitor like what were your workouts. So if people were going to CrossFit or whatever 2 days a week and now they're going 4, like these are all wins. And like, how are you feeling? Like you're sleeping better. We had stats on that. So like if you're a nutrition coach and you think the only win is weight loss, it's not. That's one of them, but there's all these other ones, and it's referred to as non-scale victories.
Back to what you said in the beginning is like, I completely agree. Like I've gone over this with coaches before. It's like from a psychological standpoint, I'd rather have someone, because in the beginning they're highly motivated. So I can actually give them something that's a little bit more restrictive than I might want them to do. Yeah, this is an individual client basis, but on a whole, right? So I'd rather have someone, like you said, if carbohydrates are a little bit lower than I might think are ideal in the beginning, and they do see that scale go down, and now they're like, oh, I trust Brian, I trust Mike. And then what feels better? Okay, great job. Now we got to lower it again.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I actually think you could eat a little bit more.
Right.
Like, what do you think about that? And then you can start to get that buy-in, and they realize like, oh, I can include an extra cup of rice or whatever it is here that they want. I can have an extra 75 grams of carbs throughout the day and I'm not going to blow up. Right. And they can start to understand that, hey, I had this initial victory at these calories and look, I'm increasing my calories and seeing results. Like this program's awesome. Right. Because all they've ever been accustomed to is like, if it's not working, move it down. If it's not working, move it down. And honestly, sometimes there's truth to that, but if we can set them up for some bigger wins in the beginning and then slowly add, at least I've seen a better retention or buy-in that way than being like, well, let's start nice and slow. And it's like, oh, great, a quarter of a pound. And like this person just feel like, at least they feel like I upended my life for a quarter of a pound. No, no thanks. Right. They want to feel like if I did all that work, I should see some sort of bump. And then, you buy yourself a little bit more time from an ongoing coaching standpoint. And that's why I think coaches generally, they're a little bit too trusting of what the client tells them in terms of like, I'm doing everything right. And it's like, cool, like you trust them. That's good. You probably should trust them, but you can't trust the human in this environment more than you trust the science of weight loss. So the first thing any coach should ever do if there's a stall is address adherence. And that for most is a challenge. Yeah. And if they're tracking, great. But even clients that do track, stuff gets left out. Yeah. And one thing I wanted to touch on that you said earlier is like when people say they're eating healthy, just break down for people that there's a difference between eating healthy and then eating for fat loss. Right. I think, in my opinion, is that if you're eating for fat loss, most of the time that should be healthy. Yep. Right. But not everything that's healthy is going to necessarily help you for fat loss. Right. Because you can eat too much of a good thing, right? There's when I think of healthy food, I think of like protein, vitamins, minerals, fiber, stuff like that. And the funny thing about health and the controversial thing today is like, it's if you lose fat, you'll probably be healthier. Now take for example, a 300-pound individual. Say they lose 100 pounds and they ate nothing but McDonald's. The health nuts out there would argue that person is probably less healthy. I would argue they lost 100 pounds. That takes precedent on any of the food ingredients that person just ate. They are 100 pounds down. That is enormous for health. But the difference is, especially with our clients, is you want people to eat nutritious foods, not just because they have these vitamins and nutrients, but because they're more filling, because they will cut out some of the foods that are more processed. Now, I would rather have someone eat some rice and vegetables than I would Captain Crunch, but they can absolutely eat that stuff if most of their food is nutritious. So that's where the flexible dieting comes into place. People think health is just what you put in your mouth. Instead, it's how you live your life. So if somebody wants to eat some junk food, it's perfectly fine. And like I said earlier, the pendulum is swinging back where people think processed food is just this demon that it is not. It's that it's easy to overeat and it's everywhere and it's filling up most people's caloric content. Yeah, I think the pendulum thing that you pointed out is definitely something that I'm seeing, and I think a lot of clients of mine are seeing as well. Is like this better than you attitude about like it's a status thing. I alcohol loser. And it's like, dude, I kind of like having a glass of wine every now and then. Like, I'm not going to have it every single night. Or if my goal was extreme body composition, I'd probably have to make some changes. But like, it's swung so far that like you're a loser if like you can't if you're not doing it to this extreme level of it. Yeah. But with that said, how did the pendulum I know not what you're doing, what you're doing or what you would ascribe to is not if it fits your macros, because I think that's one area where I've seen where the pendulum goes way too far. Yeah. Right. And then our clients see on social media, like, dude, Mike's eating Captain Crunch, ice cream and whatever, and he's shredded. And it's like, well, that person's not sharing that then they had egg whites and asparagus for breakfast. Right. So I think a lot of people, and I'm sure you could touch on it, like the origins of if it fit your macros were people asking like Alan Aragon, like if it was okay to have skim milk versus like whole milk. And the answer was like, well, if you make it fit your macros, it's fine. And that became like, you can eat 7 Pop-Tarts. Yeah. So you go through what some of the complications are there, what client expectations. The biggest issue with the if it fits your macros model is people
make unwise choices just like they do with money. If I'm like, here's $100, buy whatever you want, people start buying like really silly shit. If you give people 100 grams of carbs or more and you say, here, eat whatever you want, they start thinking like, oh, I can have 8 gummy bears, I can have a Pop-Tart, I could have this, I could have that. And then there's no room for the healthier options that are going to keep them full. So it's more of a strategic play than it is, in my opinion and experience, a health play, because you can't eat like that and be full and get results because you're not full, because you're going to be overeating. You're going to sleep like crap because you're hungry. You're not going to feel good in your workout because you're not having all the nutrients you need. So like that stuff, that was always the pushback I got from like the clean eaters, was like, oh, your people are just going to drink protein shakes and eat candy. I'm like, well, they can't hit their macros like that. They're not going to be full. They're not going to be satisfied. They're not going to work out well. And if they do that, it'll reveal itself in a matter of days when they send me a frantic text that I'm starving and I feel like crap. So people kind of auto-regulate. They start spending their macro money a little bit smarter. And that's like a non-issue. You know, that only happens when someone has 500 grams of carbs and they could eat 3 bowls of cereal. Like that's perfectly fine.
Yep. And I think that's where they get lost, is they don't realize the person that they see having the 3 bowls of cereal is like 210 pounds, right, and not like a fat 210 pounds, like a jacked 210 pounds. And you know, the part that you didn't want to do about tracking, like they did that.
Yeah, they tried.
So they didn't just wing it with those things. And I think the biggest disconnect that I see with very, very beginner clients who have no science background, nutrition background, training background, whatever, is like they truly don't understand the difference between micronutrient dense food and when they hear macronutrients. So they think, well, I read this article and it said 100 grams of carbs is 100 grams of carbs. Like, true from an energy standpoint, but how you are going to feel, what energy that you're going to have throughout the day is going to be completely different than if you eat 100 grams of carbs from rice and broccoli versus 100 grams of carbs from, Sour Patch Kids.
Right.
Like, yes, technically if you could lock yourself in a room and you ate it, your result would probably be the same, but how you'd be ravenous from only eating that, because it's not only is it designed to try and have you eat more, it's just, there's no actual, your body doesn't go like, hey, I'm craving vitamin C, so could you have this? It just says, I'm fucking hungry.
Yeah, it doesn't know.
And you just get hungry and you're like, I don't understand. I just ate this and it didn't fill me up. So it's hard for people to kind of, bridge that gap. So one thing that you touched on is adherence. If someone's coming to you, because one of the things that we hear all the time, and you mentioned it already, is like, I'm doing everything right.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, I'm doing everything right. I don't know, this isn't working. What are some of the things that you look for either in their food log or questions that you ask to try and, prod at the truth a little bit?
Yeah, this is a term, I call it the usual suspects, because pretty much for every single person who says that, who isn't getting results, it's one of a few things. One, right off the bat, it's people that are logging, but they're not weighing or measuring anything. So they're just entering whatever they think was the portion size that they ate. As we know, like depending on the food, it could be wildly off. So that's number one, is like, if you're tracking, you probably want to, especially in the beginning, is weigh and measure your food to see what it is. The second is like mindless eating. So many people just eat throughout the day and have no idea that they're actually doing it. For parents like us, we could just pick up the scraps of our kids' food because, the sunk cost fallacy.
Dude, I never thought I was going to be that person.
Yeah.
And I do it all the time. Like,
and for you,
she didn't finish that. Like, let me see.
Yeah. For you, it might be okay. For maybe the woman that has to kind of cruise at 1,400 calories, like that's finishing your kid's plate maybe a couple times could be the reason that you're maybe gaining weight. So like the mindless eating, you have to identify it so coaches can look for those opportunities. A lot of times it's the kids' food, it's distracted eating. A lot of people will eat in the car. They'll eat at the office. They'll eat while they're on a computer. They'll munch while they're watching TV at the end of the night. And a lot of these calories, like I'll put it in quotes, they never happen. These people, and it's not them lying about it, the clients. It's that they have no idea it's happening. The other things are they eat like unmeasured healthy food. If it meets their criteria of health, they don't think they have to track it because it's health. How could health make me gain weight? It's good, right? But again, too much of a good thing can add to weight. Condiments. People, a story back in the day when I was coaching my cousin's wife, she squirted a bunch of barbecue sauce on a plate. And I said, hey, Kaylee, did you see the calories in that? She's like, what? It's barbecue sauce. She turned it over and said, oh my God. And I'm like, yeah, it's not crazy, but it's like a bunch of sugar, right? Yeah. So like people don't think of that. And then they do that with like olive oil and mayos and all these sauces, and they could easily add a couple hundred calories to their day. Liquid calories, people go like, I could go on and on about this stuff. So if you want me to, I'm going to do it.
Go for it.
Starbucks, right? People go, I used to work out of a Starbucks a lot. I just set up, hunker down, find a plug, be there all day. I would see people basically buy caffeinated cupcakes all day, and they wouldn't think of it. They wouldn't log it because it's liquid. They don't realize that the calories in that is like a cupcake. Alcohol, end of the night, then they end up sleeping crappy. They wake up more hungry the next day. They're less energetic. They don't want to work out. So these things are what cause everyone problems. The meals out. So they'll track great Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Friday comes. Oh, it's the weekend. I get to let loose. What happens? They go out, they get drinks, they get appetizers. Even if they think the salad is healthy, it could have 1,000 calories. Now for some of these people, that's 80% of their calories in one little meal. That is also on the health, side of the equation. So it's stuff like that. And then you add in Saturday and Sunday, they overate in 2.5 days what they did in the other 4, So it's very easy to find what these things are for people. It's not easy to get them to understand the impact of these things. So you just need the examples, you need the stories, you need the data, and you need the trust. And that's one of the biggest things I think is lacking is the trust that you're the person that can help this person. Because when we go on social media and people have their friend groups that maybe are selling some supplement that you don't even agree with, they're going to believe the people with large followings and time in their social network, not necessarily you, the coach they just paid. And even though they gave you money, that doesn't mean they're going to listen. So one of the best coaching tips I can give is you have to build trust with these people. You have to build likability. You have to be relatable in some way. And you just have to listen to what they're talking about and provide pretty easy, doable solutions.
So what are some tips for people that because I know I personally deal with a lot of clients that they have work meetings, they're in the city, 6 days out of the week, and they're at restaurants, they're not gonna, be able to get, listen, there's always a way, but in general, they're not going to and they're straight up with it. They're gonna be like, hey, I'm not gonna tell the chef to just grill me a chicken breast. I'm gonna order something off the menu. So how do you suggest, because I know that's one of the questions that we get from coaches. Yeah. What should I do with these clients? They go out to eat all the time. How do I get them to track that?
Well, so I used to have clients, I wouldn't tell them this, and I don't think they should do this. They thought they were doing something good by bringing a scale to these restaurants. I'm like, you're probably not accurate anyway, because you don't know what all the hidden calories are in that thing. Chef John in the back probably added 2 tablespoons of butter. I'm sure you're not putting that in. So my advice is not to bring scales to these things. My advice is actually to maybe do something that you said that you wouldn't expect them to do, which is, hey, waiter, waitress, do you think I could just get 5 ounces of chicken? And it doesn't have to be exact, but something like chicken, if you're up or down a little bit in weight, it doesn't matter. The problem is people go to these restaurants and it's they don't want to spend $18 to $23 on what they could make at home for $4. So when they're at the restaurant, they see all this awesome stuff and they're like, oh, well, I'm going to spend the money. I'm going to get something that's really enjoyable. And that's the exact thing that I think is holding people back, is that type of mindset. It's you're there for maybe the company, maybe and don't get me wrong, I want people to enjoy. I'm not saying you have to do this forever or every single meal you have to order a chicken breast, but there are often really wise choices at these restaurants, no matter where you go, that you can ask for. It can be lean chicken, it can be steak, it can be vegetables on the side. It just can't be the pasta Alfredo.
Yeah. And I think there's a big difference too, just to clarify for people listening, there's a big difference between, hey, I'm going out Saturday night for me and my wife's anniversary versus, you have a work meeting every other day where you're going to these places, right?
Yeah.
And I tell people, like, listen, if that's your lifestyle, you're going to have to come up with some sort of operating system for yourself.
What you order. You could eat a little bit less during the week as long as you can manage it. Now, sometimes that can backfire for certain people, but if you eat less on Thursday to anticipate a 500 calorie overage on Friday, you can do that, because the thing that matters the most is the averages. The problem is people don't do that, so they just eat on top of it.
That's one of the, I put a post up of it, I think maybe like a month ago. It was like 3 things people in fitness do, but tell their clients not to. And it was like budget for meals.
Yeah.
It was like, cause there was this big pushback of like, if you're going to go out and enjoy, don't undereat throughout. And I'm like, no, like
I don't agree.
I was like, you should absolutely do that. Like,
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I don't agree with the general message that says, don't anticipate it. It's the same thing as like, you have a big purchase coming up.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. You just put it on the card.
Now, you have to know yourself. We're not saying eat 600 calories in a day to eat 2,000 on Friday. Mm-hmm. We're saying cut back a little bit, use strategies to manage hunger, because hunger management is one of the best predictors of long-term success. If you're not managing that, you're dead in the water. So I don't know. I think it's like this movement with coaches that are like, just do your best and try a little bit, and maybe your results will come. And I'm more in the middle. That's like, I understand this is hard and the world isn't set up for you to be a healthy person, but you still better freaking try. Yeah. Because if you don't, you're getting nowhere, and I'm not going to bullshit you.
And to your point, it's like the people don't understand is like, if your bank account is overdrawn by $1, it's overdrawn.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with your calories. Like, you don't have to be over by 500 calories for the week for you to not make progress. It's literally 1.
Right.
It's like, you could, like, depending on, a few things, but in general, if you're off whatever your target was, if you went over it, like, you're going to, and that's over whatever time period you decide to measure. You want to measure a day or 37 days. If you were over in that time period, then at least from a scale standpoint, you're probably going to be at or around exactly where you started. And that's really hard for people to try to wrap their head around or understand. Like, yeah, I know you did good Monday through Thursday, and I know Friday wasn't that bad, but it could have put you just 50 calories over.
Yeah.
And then that is, too much.
And that's the what I call it, accidental maintenance. People are, they're psychologically dieting. They're really trying hard, and in their mind, I'm usually good. I should see results, but physiologically they're not, because the averages are higher than they think. And it's because of a lot of these little accidents that maybe some are unconscious, some are conscious, but as coaches, we have to figure out, like, what the heck's going on?
And I think a lot of people, like, I'm sure there's some sort of psychological thing with this, but at least from just a general observation, they tend to remember all the struggles more than they do actually the enjoyments.
Yeah.
Right. They remember the one time they made the tough choice not to have something, not the 3 where they said, fuck it, like, and just had whatever. So, in their mind, they're like, I'm killing myself here. And they don't appreciate it's all the added meals out, I'll just have one drink, that sort of thing, that they're just overdoing it with.
That's it, man.
So outside of a nutrition standpoint, there's a lot more to coaching that you went over besides just nutrition, right? Nothing that we talked about, I think, was anything that was, oh my God, I had never heard that from a scientific standpoint, right? So what are some of the other behaviors? You touched on one just to kind of start the conversation. Like, hey, if you're not sleeping well, people are like, what the hell? Like, you said it just matters, just my calories. So What does it matter how I sleep? And it's like, what are some of those other factors like sleep and things like that you guys would monitor or you would suggest keeping an eye on as a coach that can make this process much easier?
Yeah. So to me, everything is about, it's like getting people to eat the right amount is what they have to do. But how you get them to do it is like the art of coaching and identifying, like, what are the triggers that are pushing either more food, less food, enough food, whatever. And sleep was one of them. Alcohol intake we monitored. We monitored bowel movements, because sometimes people would get a little backed up and their scale wouldn't move, and we'd be like, oh, you're just literally full of shit. So maybe you should eat that fiber we told you about. We would do daily steps. Because another thing is, everybody thinks in the whole metabolism thing, right? In calorie burn, there's the 4 big things is the resting metabolic rate, how many calories you burn through general movement, NEAT, thermic effect of food, how many calories, your body burns digesting food, and exercise calories. And everybody overestimates exercise calories and they forget that there's all these other calorie burners. So it was not uncommon to find adults doing 3,500 steps a day, 4,500 steps a day. And when you get them to 7, 8, 9, 10,000 steps, they can actually eat a few hundred more calories, which for a lot of people, those 300 extra calories are exactly why they're not getting results. So when you monitor all this stuff, you start to have all these levers you can pull. And as coaches, like, you don't just want a lever that when you pull it, calories go up or down. You want to pull the lever of like, oh, this person's getting 6 hours of sleep. If I can get them to 8, their decision-making the next day is going to be excellent. Their hunger is going to be excellent. That means when they're well rested, they're just going to be a better client and they're going to get better results. So how can I help this person get better results? Same goes for stress. And it's related to sleep. If somebody's stressed out all day, you could start talking about like, well, what's going on? And maybe some coaches don't want to touch on this stuff, but I always wanted to know. And I'm not asking people to share every deep, dark secret, but if it's something like, oh, I'm stressed out, my kid didn't make the basketball team, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Like, I understand. Is there anything you can do about that right now? No, it's just upsetting. Okay. Well, throw it in the bucket of, I can't do anything about it. Let's look at the bucket filled with things you can do something about. Now, how do we dump that stuff out? And you start talking about all these different things and you start pulling all these levers. And then you're like, okay, wow, I just pulled these levers and I got them to eat less. I didn't have to reduce their calories, or let me rephrase that. I got them to eat the amount they're supposed to eat. I didn't have to reduce it. I didn't have to do anything. I just made it more doable. It's like armor going into battle. It's like, all right, you're well rested, you're moving, you're working out well, like you're drinking your water. It's going to be just way easier to lose body fat.
And I think that message right there is super important to anybody that puts themselves into, what would be the right word, like a special category, right?
Oh,
like,
dude.
Oh, I'm a parent, so you don't understand. Or I work with a lot of women that are either going through or have been through menopause. Yeah. I'm like, I will never experience that, but I worked with plenty of women that have. I'm not saying that it's not difficult, but the underlying principles of what now we still have to do doesn't change, but we need an entirely different set of skills now to still be able to do those things. So the things we have to do don't change.
Yeah.
We need to be going for walks, getting some activity that we enjoy in. We need to prioritize protein and being in a calorie deficit. We need to lift weights. Now, because of your lifestyle or something that you're going through, might make that infinitely harder. So how do we help them, do those things, which is a whole nother thing. Cause I know I have no problem admitting I was super cocky going into being a dad. And I'm like, dude, I'll still train 5 days a week and I'm going to do whatever. And then I was like, it's like 2:30 in the morning and I was like drooling on the couch and I'm like, I'm going to deadlift. I'm supposed to do 90% for, 6 singles today. I'm like, that's not like, I'm going to die. Right. So you have to learn different skill sets, different ways of going about things. But the underlying principles are still there. So I think that's really a refreshing message to try to understand, like, you're not, there's dads that have figured this out, right? And there are women that have gone through menopause that have figured this out. And the point is that's why you need a coach, right? This isn't just, I just give people their macros and they do it. And it's like, well, they don't. Yeah. There'd be a lot more successful people. They don't do it. The problem isn't knowing the number. There are computers now that can give you a number.
I tell people, like, if they're like, how do I find my macros? I'm like, all right, just Google like 3 different calculators, take the average, try it for a couple of weeks. And it's like,
it's going to be between 10 and 12. Back to, we were talking about Lyle McDonald offline.
Yeah.
Like, I remember reading one of his books. It was like this thick. And then there was one page. It was like, if you don't want to do all that, just if you notice all these other like stacks of research I analyzed all come down to 10 to 12. Start there.
I didn't do all these complicated like calculations. There's no point, but you're right about this stuff. And I've had numerous people, mostly non-clients, argue with me constantly about, well, you're just a guy. You don't understand. It's like, well, I've had thousands of versions of you come through our virtual door. If you want to, you can talk to them. I'll just shut up. And they'll tell you, I went through menopause, I had kids, I had this, I had these challenges, and I still did it. And I'm not saying it's easy. It's definitely not. These things do make it a lot harder. But I do think it's empowering to know if you are one of these people in these that falls under this criteria, like you can do it. I had people who were upset when they went to the doctor and they found out they had no underlying hormone issues that were like, oh, I just wanted to figure it out. It's like, we did figure it out. It's too much food somewhere. Now, if that is offensive to you, I don't know where to go from here. And I want to be clear, like, I wasn't a jerk. Like, I used to brag about our customer service all the time, and I still do. We had world-class customer service ratings, like up there with some of the best brands in the world. And we were still real with our clients. Like, so coaches are so scared to be like, it is this. Like, if you don't agree with this, like we honestly cannot move forward. And if I had a client that just did not believe in caloric deficit, it was not a good fit. But what sucks about that is there are thousands of coaches now online, even some with millions of followers, who will say it is not that. So it's extremely hard as a coach to build that trust when you don't have those type of numbers following your account. Especially
with, because exactly, like for me, I have 2 gyms in the area,
yep.
But so locally, okay, there's some respect. But at the end of the day, if one of my clients is like, but this person on Instagram has 1.2 million followers, they got to know more than you. And it's like, maybe, but I don't think they actually coached anybody,
right.
Over the last, 20 years or whatever it is, because it's and that's why I changed my opinion on, because I used to be, when I was younger, I'm like, oh, anybody that needs to use like a drug or something like that, that's soft or like it's like, if it makes their environment easier for them to do the thing, they still have to do the thing, right? There's no amount of drugs that don't allow you to do the thing. But there are things that can make, doing the thing a little bit easier. Right. So, and, that obviously brings us to a whole nother topic of like with drugs like Ozempic and things like that. Like, I don't know what your opinion is. And cause I don't think you weren't operating your business during a time where that was happening, but where do you think what's your opinion on that now? If you were running the business now, what do you think, in managing that from a customer service level, like how do you go about handling something like that?
So there's this interesting thought that I always have is you never know what you're going to do or what you would do unless you were in a situation. So right now I see a lot of coaches who are like, it's cheating, it's this, it's that. They shouldn't take it. They should just work hard, whatever. My opinion is, it makes it easier for them. Cool. Like, go for it. But I also don't have a business that relies on being the alternative solution to that. So if I had the business still and this drug was out there, maybe my opinion would be different. So I don't necessarily fault coaches who are thinking like that because their livelihood depends on being a solution to this problem. Whereas now there's a drug that people can take and it can turn down hunger and give them the results. I think for the world, it's a great thing because, again, we're living in an environment that doesn't support being in shape and being healthy. It is everything but that because everybody's working hard. There's food temptations everywhere. There are certain individuals that have hunger signaling that maybe you and I will never experience. So they need something. So I think it's a great thing. If that puts a lot of nutrition coaches out of business, so be it. I was here for the person in need, not necessarily to be a, friend of the industry. Whereas I love being friendly with all the coaches, but like these people need help. Let them take it. It doesn't take anything away from you, even if you think it does.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's not zero sum. It's not if they do this, then that means whatever. I think if you could just lean into what are some of the shortcomings of these things, it might make it even more difficult to maintain muscle mass if you are using one of those drugs and not supporting that with strength training. Okay, so perfect. You got that one. I don't have to worry about all that stuff with you. Let's just lift.
Yeah, you have customers. If you have a gym, it's great for you. Like you said, the problem is like a lot of these people will just do the drug. They won't work out, so they'll lose muscle mass. It's not much different than if they just did a regular diet. That's like the argument you see from some trainers is like, oh, they're going to lose muscle. It's like, Well, what did you think people that did a random diet, what do you think happened to them? They also lost muscle.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I never thought of that point, but that's an interesting point that I'll definitely keep for discussion, because it's like,
right, same thing.
If someone decided I was just going to eat 1,000 calories and starve myself,
what do you think?
They're not maintaining muscle either.
And then these individuals that take the drugs, like if they're not eating as much food, they're probably under eating protein, which with resistance training is going to support the muscle retention. So you have to acknowledge that, because protein is very filling. And if they're not that hungry, they're not going to just eat a bunch of chicken. They could be just eating a little bit of more junkier foods. So you have to watch out for that.
That is, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's the one area that, I try not to let things bother me, but it's the one area that still kind of like drives me nuts, is that when I see someone using it, having good results for themselves, and now I'm going to teach others. And it's like, again, to your point, I have no problem with someone including some processed foods in their diet.
Yeah.
I think that's part of being healthy. I think it's knowing, hey, I enjoy a package of this every once in a while. I know how to include that.
Yep.
But when they get on and they're like, and this is what I'm eating now, it becomes like it's fantasy land. Like, oh, well, that person lost 50 pounds and they're just filling their cart with, Skittles or prepackaged things that, it's high protein, but it's covered in like some cream sauce and it's 90% of the calories from fat.
Right.
That's the one thing that I think still drives me nuts, is that doesn't give you, and again, I don't feel like I'm going to lose business over it.
Yeah.
I just think it makes my job harder when, because if you're the average person, you don't know, and you see me saying like protein, fiber, fat, water, include carbs to the level of your activity. And you're like candy. And you're like, all right, it's going to be a hard competition.
Of course. It's freaking delicious, man. I love it. Right. But yeah, you have to know what these people are doing, how they're perceiving the information out there. And that's like, when we had our coaches, it was always like, these are the diet trends that are happening right now. Like, be on the lookout. These are the questions we're going to get. I mean, you could imagine when one of these Netflix documentaries come out, like our online community would just light on fire. Like, hey, should I ask my coach if I can go lower protein? Should I be eating animals? And it's like, oh God, for like 3 weeks. You're just battling these things.
I never sort of think of it having 5,000 or 6,000 people in a community. And then when something that goes out, like for us, our gym's 150 members is about the right number. So like if 10% of them ask questions, it's really like, it's not that bad.
Well, that was active.
10% of 6,000.
That was active clients. We had tens of thousands in this group. So
because the group is separate than clients.
And it was amazing 99% of the time. But the times where Netflix is like, here's a new documentary.
Everybody wants to be vegan when, something comes out.
It's interesting how it was vegan a few years ago. And now everybody's eating just animals. Like, doesn't that tell you like maybe it's somewhere in between?
Yeah, I try as best I can to get people to look at things and say, hey, let's look at the commonalities of things rather than the differences. Like, very rarely do you see like the let's eat little to no protein diet.
Yeah.
Right. It's usually, no matter what it is, paleo, whatever, they usually focus on some sort of protein. So, all right, that's probably good. Right. Very rarely do any of them say like, you know what, we should increase the amount of refined and processed carbohydrates we eat. Usually they might, one group might say it's because of our DNA and our ancestral backgrounds. Another person might say it's for whatever reason. But in general, the lower, less processed, refined carbohydrate choices. But so let's keep that one. Right. And most of them don't say just eat whatever you want. There's some sort of restriction. So how about we just focus on those three things? Yeah. Some sort of restriction, an emphasis on protein, and then keeping the other things that we eat to as minimally refined and processed as we can, with some sort of freedom in between. And it's like, that's not sexy. It's not, there's no, it's much easier to have a villain in the game, because then you can say like, oh, see, the reason that you're not succeeding is the FDA or this person or whatever. And it just sucks, because like, I think the more and more overwhelmed with information, I'm not one of these like tinfoil hat conspiracy person.
Right.
I don't think that there's some mad person behind it doing it to try and keep you confused. I think people are just competing for a limited amount of people's attention. So they have to do more drastic things. It makes it impossible for people. So then when they sit down across from you and you're like, hey, we can do this really, really simple, doesn't mean easy, but it doesn't have to be that complicated. They're like, nah, I can't win.
That's the issue is if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. But in nutrition, those rules don't apply. Like, you just need to eat the right amount, have good amount of protein, limit the processed stuff, but not completely avoid it, and you're fine. And people will criticize like food pyramids and the plate method and all this stuff, but it's like generally it's pretty good. It tells you to kind of avoid like a lot of the sugars and things like that. Not entirely, but it shouldn't be the bulk of your diet. And 99% of people, I think if you gave them a shopping cart and said, here, go fill it with healthy food, they would do it. But the information is not the issue. It's that the world we're living in is not conducive to eating healthy for a number of reasons. And it's not that people don't know what to do. It's that they don't feel like doing it or don't have the time to do it. And that's a reality that I think the industry needs to acknowledge, is that we don't all have the same 24 hours in a day. And I was guilty of saying that many years ago.
That's me included.
And it's embarrassing because it's not just a like choice that I'm going to eat healthy. It's like, okay, like today, I want to work out, but I don't have time unless I do it at 10 o'clock tonight. And I'm not going to do that. I'll just do it tomorrow. Now, is that a lack of discipline? Maybe, but I'd rather hang out with my wife than hang out by myself lifting weights.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's listen, there's a big difference. If you told me that you were trying to set the world record for the New York City Marathon, I'd be like, well, you better get that running tonight then. Right. Then that's not an option. But if you're like, I just want to kind of live till I'm 85 or 90 and be in overall good health, it's like, yeah, tomorrow's fine. Yeah. Like you can do that. And if anything, the stress of trying to force that in at 10 o'clock at night, you could probably argue would be worse than anything else. And that just goes again to the culture that we live in with social media. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm 90 years old and get off my lawn kind of thing, but like, it's just more in your face now than it is ever. Like, it's just like, well, if this guy said I have to, get up at 5 a.m. and it's like, but you have 3 kids that are under 5.
Right.
Like if you're getting up at that hour, it better be to, I guess, make breakfast because you're not, it's like, yeah, I see these ones now. It's like couples. It's like, we get up, we hold each other accountable when we get up and we go to the gym at 5. I'm like, so do you have a nanny or like
exactly.
You just banking the kid? Hope the kid doesn't wake up because there's no one home.
Or you see now too, it's like, well, I work out at 5 because my kid sleeps till 7. It's like, I got news for you. That kid is going to wake up at 5 sometimes. And you're going to be like, what do I do? Yeah. Do I get this kid back to sleep? Okay, they're up.
Out, man.
They're up.
I got a deadlift.
Yeah, right. And that's how some people will say, like, that's probably what you should do. No, I don't think that's not the logical answer.
Right. And I think there's a point now where I tell people, depending on where they're at, I'm like, you should just unfollow anybody who is giving that type of advice. And listen, whether someone chooses to have a family for either reasons under their control or not under control, total respect, but it's not the same 24 hours. So let's shift gears a little bit. I mean, with your family life, how many, like, what's that look like for you now? How many kids do you have? What are their ages? And what were the shifts in some of that for you? Not even from I'm sure also from, like I have 2 gyms. I used to just get work done at 11:30 at night. I'd be like, oh, no problem. Like, oh, my wife wants to watch a show. I'll do the work after. But now it's like, if it's not booked out, then it's probably not getting done or it's just causing me stress. So how did that change for you with both fitness and business?
It changes everything. Like my perception and my understanding of the challenges that people have after they have kids is just completely different. I thought everybody just figures it out. And it's like, I joke that I don't even have a job and I don't know how to get things done because of these kids. Like I love them to death. They are so demanding, as you know, I have 2 kids. They're about almost 3.5 and almost 2. So like they're at the age where you kind of can't let them just play by themselves because when it gets quiet, one is probably sitting on the other. I
had a masterpiece on the wall the other day of like crayons. I just tried to get a drink.
It's I joke with my wife. I'm like, those kids that are like really good at art. It's like, did their parents just not care about their walls? Because like the only time we do arts and crafts is when we're there watching. Like we don't let these crayons out of our sight. Mm. So it's you start to see how difficult and unstructured you have to be, because when you do have structure, like a kid might just not put their shoes on for 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. So like your whole perception of everything you've ever seen changes because you start thinking of all those status updates you saw on social media. That's like, if you're late, you're disrespectful. I'm like, okay, well, my kid did not want to pick shoes today. Like you can gentle parent your way into, giving them the options and all this. It doesn't matter. You still need that baked in time. And then it's like, okay, they they want to wake up at whatever time. There goes my breakfast. There goes this. There goes that. Oh, I had this planned. They're sick. I have to go to the doctor today. So it just opens up your eyes to the challenges that people have that you might not have been aware of. And just like cliche stuff of like what's actually important. You know, that was a big genesis for me to sell the business, was finding out my wife was pregnant and being like, oh, there's an offer. All right, let me entertain this. What does life after business look like for me? And I love it. I'm the very boring person now. If most people watch my day to day, they'd be like, huh, that's not what I would expect if that situation happened to me. But it's like, this is what I want. But it's not easy. It's stressful as hell. It's way more stressful and way more difficult than it was building what ended up being one of America's fastest growing companies. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, and listen, where I'm at with our gyms is nowhere near that level, but I will say when I was building the first gym and I was there from 5 a.m. till 7 or 8 o'clock at night, was infinitely easier than the 3 hours before bedtime. Right. Cause like at least I had a plan. Like, at least I knew like, hey, we're probably going to do this today. Like I understood like people are going to come in the door. We're going to have a workout. We're going to talk. We're going to go over and then it'll be over. Yep. Right. But at this point, it's like anything could happen between those hours. And that was the one thing that like, there is no more, and I'm not saying this as a bad thing. It's just something to adjust to, is like, there is no like, I used to be like, oh, you got to finish like a book a week. I'm like, yeah, good luck.
I know. I know.
It's like, what are you reading these days? I'm like, honestly, I'm still on page 37 of this. It's a good thing I had that discipline before I had a kid, because I'd be an idiot. It's a good thing I got all that down now, and I'm still learning, because she's almost 2, but, and that's a huge identity change. I know at least it was for me, because it was like, part of my identity was like, hey, I'm someone who values continuing education and trying to learn and get better. And the rate at which I was used to doing that was a lot higher than it is now. And then it's like, I'm failing. And you're like, all right, now I'm failing. So like, this isn't working. And when you're at home, you're thinking about what's work doing. When you're at work, you're wondering about what's at home. So that's like a huge shift. And I'm like, it's no wonder these people couldn't fucking like log how many carrots they had. Like they got bigger problems.
Exactly. It's like, and then you start to beat yourself up because you're not living up to what you identified yourself as. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm a learner. I'm a this. And like these people that have these schedules, like I've seen some of these entrepreneur people post like their Google Calendar, and it's like every second of their day is gobbled up by something, and they have kids. I'm like, this is an act. Or again, you have help, or the other person is doing everything. And that, if that's your story, cool. You agree to that, whatever. But like, don't make that look like that's the situation for everybody, because the kid thing is one of the biggest monkey wrenches in the world in an organized person's life. And I don't think I would have had this story happen if I had kids when I started or during the business.
Yeah. And I think that's the way that you worded it was perfect, is that like, I have no problem if that's your choice, right? And that's awesome. Happy for you. But it's not condescending, but it's more of the judgmental of like, and if you don't then do this too, you're not as mentally tough. And it's like, and like you said, like it's redefining those terms. Cause you said, oh, like I'm a learner. And it's like, dude, I'm learning more now every single day. It's just not about, fitness and nutrition right now anymore. It's about like, oh, I won't say that anymore. It's like, oh crap, she heard me say that.
I'm learning that my negotiation skills with a 3.5-year-old is terrible. It's so hard to get them to do things.
And the craziest thing for me is like, I thought the fitness world was predatory. Yeah. There's nothing more predatory than
parenting
people
stuff?
Like, yes, parenting accounts on social media trying to get that you suck at this, or that like, if your kid has to watch 30 minutes of Miss Rachel so that you can make them food, that you're a piece of crap. And it's like, there's nothing, like, I thought fitness was the worst.
It's shameful.
Think parenting might even be another degree past that.
Because there's nothing more important to someone than their children. So what is the best way to do business? It's probably to make people think they're doing wrong so they can buy what you sell them that's going to fix it. And that's what a lot of these parent accounts are doing. And don't get me wrong, a lot of them are awesome. But I often worry if it's a lot like the clean eating camp, where it's like, if you do that, you're a piece of shit. And I'm like you said, we literally some nights cannot cook dinner because the kids will just be climbing up us. They're so demanding. It's like we turn our heads for 5 minutes, dinner is ruined. So thank you, Miss Rachel. Thank you, Danny Go. Thank you, Frozen. Like if you want to think that that's going to mess up your kids, I have news for you. Like the best indicator of a successful, happy child that does well in life is being loved. So like we love the shit out of our kids. So I don't feel bad if I do a little bit of this screen time.
Yeah, you're not doing it to just like so that you can go play golf, like you're doing or whatever. And even if you had to, whatever, your choice. But yeah, it's like there's. I was so shocked at that when I first, because algorithms are very good at what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to keep me engaged, and you'd be watching these things, you'd be like, man. And here I am, someone who, if someone was telling me what I was saying out loud about fitness, I'm like, dude, you can't follow that stuff. Like if you eat some of that, you'll be fine. Right. Like, but with my kid, I was like Googling shit I would never imagine. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, should I be, no.
They got 11 hours of sleep. They need 11 and a half. Oh my God. What am I going to do?
Like, her nap was 20 minutes shorter today. Like something wrong? Like, and you're like, no, it's just 2. And it's a big thing. And that's where for me, things that if you define your strengths as I am regimented and I am disciplined, well, guess what? When you have kids, your discipline better be that you're flexible. That's better what you be disciplined to. Because if not, you're going to have and I know I struggled in the beginning because I had a way of getting things done that worked for me up until a point and it didn't work anymore.
And the phases of the child, like I saw on Reddit, on the dad Reddit, it was like, my kid is 4 weeks old. This is so easy. When is it going to get harder? It's like, your kid is just sleeping at this point. Wait, like 2 is a little crazy. 3 comes and it's wild, man. Everybody talks about 2. I think it's 3. 3 is where they go nuts.
Yeah, she'll be 2 in March, and there, like I said, there's no like people give you this expectation, like, oh, she'll just sit and color by herself. Like, no way.
For maybe 3 minutes.
Yeah. And it's like there's always, and like my wife and I are now getting in a rhythm of, well, I'm sure we'll never get in a rhythm. She'll be 20 before we're in the rhythm of like, hey, you're going to go do this, so I'll do that. Or that, this idea that you're going to work out 6 days a week for 2 hours. And that's why one of the only people that I respect when I that's why I love like the daily dad stuff so much for my holiday. Cause like he'll post when you say the whole thing about his counter, he posts it and there's this big block that just says no.
Yeah.
And again, I could be a complete idiot and maybe it's totally full. Who knows? I'll never know. But yeah, like it's so much easier to call bullshit on things when you see that and you're like, there's no way that you have 3 kids and you cooked that while that else happened. Like someone else did it, you bought it, which is fine. But then pretending that you have it all together is super stressful to the average person.
Have you ever seen the the parent travel accounts where it looks like people just travel with two people and 3 kids, and it's like the greatest thing? It's like, where's the team? You have 1 million followers. There's a team behind this because I've traveled with 2 kids and I carry about 150 pounds of bullshit through an airport. It's incredibly hard to the point where you don't really want to do it. And that's okay. And the internet will shame you for not giving a 3-year-old an experience because it's hard. And it's like, we'll get there.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it all right now.
Yeah. I mean, I was, like I said, I was just completely shocked that like, I thought nothing would be more of the Wild West than fitness, but parenting was, at another level.
Yeah.
But so what's up next for you? I know, like for context, you sold your company. There's a non-compete in fitness for a certain amount of time. I know the last time we spoke at dinner, that was expiring soon.
Well, it depends on your definition of soon. For some people, it's 2 weeks. Soon in this world is 462 days.
All right. So
I like to joke. I always kind of know about the time.
Got
June 1st, 2026.
Okay. So you got some time.
Yeah.
So any idea what you might want to do then? I mean, obviously it sounds like you're in a good flow with the time you spend with your family and things that you're focused on now, but where are you moving in the future?
Yeah. I have a lot of thoughts on it. I miss a lot of it. I don't miss a lot of it also. I think of maybe coaching a few people just to kind of, get my need. I think of starting a company again. I think the thing that I'm leaning towards maybe is like consulting other, maybe specifically online nutrition people. I don't know, because I always think like, what is the reason I originally got started? Is that reason the same? And if it isn't, am I doing it for the wrong reasons? For example, when I first started over 10 years ago at this point, it was people are really confused and they need help, and I think I can help them. Now, honestly, I worry if it's, do I just want to see money coming in? Do I want the ego hit for people to tell me I'm changing their lives again? What is the actual reason? Is it trying to fill a hole that can be filled with something else, which is like maybe a lack of community, which I can get with pickleball now, which is cool. So I don't know exactly what I would do. Maybe nothing, maybe something. I think the biggest worry for me is if I get into it, do I get like addicted again? Because I honestly think I was addicted to it. It was just so rewarding in every way. I'm worried that will happen again. And I also worry that if it doesn't go well, how will I handle it? Because it's easy to think like, oh, everything's cool right now. But what if I tried again? And I'm not saying I would even try to do what I did before, because there was way too much luck and circumstance and timing in that. But what if I try and no one cared? How would I handle that as a person with a relatively stable mental health? You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like that could be devastating. Like think of like an athlete. They quit on top. They come back and they can't shoot anymore. Like what happens? They're broken, right? So there's a lot of thoughts. Maybe I need therapy. I don't know. I don't know what to do. Maybe I put it out there and I let people help me figure it out. But maybe I'll just dip my toes and see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of opportunities, but I was just curious if you were like, oh, I'm definitely want to do this. But on that point, I can imagine it'd be hard because like you hit a grand slam out of the gate, and I don't know the entire story. I'm sure I'm not playing it off as if it was super simple, but it was obviously a huge success. And then, there's always the story of like, oh, well, my first restaurant was this. So I opened the second one and then it bombs. And you're like, shit, do I actually know what I'm doing? And so there's that, a lot of that self-talk and, as someone who probably needs to go to therapy too, I'm not gonna tell you that you should if I don't. So like, you figure that out on your own. But, so what would be, like some of those, what would be some tips, like if you were to get into the world of trying to mentor online nutrition coaches, what are some of the main things that you think people are making mistakes with now that they can improve to get their clients better results?
Yeah. So everyone I don't know where it came from, but everyone's got these friggin' boundaries now that basically translate to bad customer service. And what I mean by that is when we started, I knew that one of the biggest problems was people don't have support when they need it. Now, for example, when do people mess up the most on their nutrition or their fitness? Probably the weekends, right? So if I take weekends off and I say, nobody can text me on a Saturday, what do? I give people worse results because now they're struggling and they have no one to talk to. So a lot of coaches have all these boundaries where it's like, you can only text me at this time. You don't expect a response before 24 hours. And I'm very much like, I treat it like a friend. Like you text me, I'm going to just text you back if I see it. Obviously I go to sleep and I have things to do, but I think most coaches online specifically could probably knock down some of their boundaries and be a little bit more present. I think more people need to challenge their clients. I think people are so scared of offending and losing a customer that they never challenge them. And I think if you look at like business consultants and things like that, they're not just going to tell you, yeah, keep doing what you're doing. But a lot of the coaching out there is a little bit too, for lack of a better word, soft. And it's not pushing people or challenging people to get where they need to go to get those results. I think people are doing too many sort of embarrassing things online to get exposure that doesn't translate to getting clients. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to who have 100,000 plus followers who probably make $1,000 a month in coaching. I would probably have people dominate their local communities, join bowling leagues, softball, pickleball, join a bunch of gyms, get to know people, because those people are going to become your clients way more than the people online. And a lot of people online right now, the coaches, they're all fishing in the same pond. So how many fish are actually there, right? It seems like a lot, but there's also a lot of fishermen. So why don't you fish where people are not at?
Sure. And like, I'll give credit because I don't want to take it as an original idea,
Yeah.
but like John Goodman talks about, like, it's not the same game.
Yeah.
Right. If you want to play a game for likes, follows, and clicks, then there's certain things that you do. And if there's a game that you want to play to try and actually acquire business or actually help people, it's a completely different game. Like there's people out there that have 2,000 or 3,000 followers on Instagram and they're making 5 figures a month. Right. Like, and they were, you know, and they might be in Idaho. So they're killing it. Like, you know,
I think we had, on Instagram, we had 6,000 followers and I think we did like 7 million that year.
Right.
It's so like, it doesn't really matter.
People are so concerned with that. And like, you know, whether it's locally or people that you meet. And it's like, to the point about the boundaries, it goes to the ebbs and flows of what is being communicated in the culture that we're doing. So what I mean by that is, when I was first starting out as a gym, I was super lucky. Alan Cosgrove was one of my early mentors when I was like in college. So I had a very good foundation. I was super lucky that when I set up a business, it was done a really efficient way. I saved a lot of mistakes that I think a lot of other people didn't have. But around that time, everything that was being pushed is like, you need to be in control of your business. And it's like, no one that built anything worth talking about did that. Yeah. They did it maybe 20 years later, they started to have these boundaries. But yeah, if you have 2 clients and they text you at, you know, Saturday at 2 a.m, please answer. You know, like that's not reasonable.
That's
when
extreme, but
but,
I thought you were going to say 2 p.m.
Or, you know, if you're 22, right? If you're 40 something years old and you have multiple kids, that's not always going to be realistic because you have to have some, but like, then you're getting, you know, you're looking at people who either want a job or they're looking to start and they're like, but I don't really want to work on Saturdays. And you're like, all right, well, good luck. But not saying
the
it's impossible,
competitor, and this is what okay, you don't want to do it, I'll do it, and I'll charge less than you, and that's why we have more clients than you.
Right.
And you don't word it like that, but you tell people like, if you're not going to do that, someone else is, and it's not hard to find someone online who does what you do right now. So you have to go probably above and beyond of where you actually want to. And I think the biggest issue with a lot of coaches I talk to is they do what they want to do. They don't do what the customers need. And that's a big problem.
So expand on that a little bit. What do you mean by that?
So a customer wants someone that they can talk to pretty much whenever. They don't want to send a message and wait a day and a half to get a reply. They want someone who's going to listen to them, maybe vent about their problems on the weekend, not someone that says, this isn't that important, just share your workout or your nutrition with me. And this happens. Like, I've talked to coaches, I look at their onboarding stuff and I'm like, so they pay you and they get nothing from you for 2 days. Oh, well, yeah, I'm working on their plan. Fucking tell them that. You know how awesome it is for this person to get an email or a text message, especially, hey, Mary, I just got all your info. Thank you so much. I'm going to get your plan set up. In the meantime, here's access to my community. You know, maybe we could hop on a call and talk about some things, whatever. It's like people just wait. And I think it's not really the fault of the coaches or people in business in general. It's like customer service or poor customer service is the norm now. Like everybody kind of sucks. Like
that was one of the number one things I learned. I don't know if it was in a book or where I heard it, but Starbucks did some research and they found that people didn't care waiting a long time for the coffee. They cared about waiting a long time to order the coffee. So Starbucks did everything that it could to speed up the process of which they could take your order. Yeah. Because it takes what it takes. If you're going to order these kids go in there and they order like something that has like the receipt for what the drink is 17 pages long. And that's why they got pushback from their employees. They're like, well, if I have to make this thing, it's going to take. But anyway, they found that as long as they could speed up the time that people got their order in, they were okay. Right. They could appreciate having to sit back and like, oh, the guy's making my coffee now. Right. So to your point, if you're actually doing custom work and not just handing out like, here's your plan that I give everybody, it takes time. No one thinks that that's unreasonable, but you made an awesome point of like, tell them that, right? If it's like, all right, well, you'll hear from me in a couple of days. Like you can curate some things that go out and say like, hey, just, great talking with you, putting together your plan now, Monday you'll get it in your inbox and then we'll book a call after it and we'll go over it. Right. Yada, yada, yada.
And at Starbucks, you see the people working. When you pay someone online and then you don't see them working, but you see them posting and interacting with their online community or making reels or whatever, you're like, what about me? So it's all a perception game.
I will be the first to admit that I had that issue with someone we were using for something work that we needed done for the business.
Yeah.
And I remember it, like, you know, for right or wrong, I was probably wrong or young and stupid, whatever. But anyway, there was a project that was being worked on, and I was friends with the person on social, and stuff wasn't done when it was supposed to be done. And Pete, who produces this podcast, it wasn't you, so don't worry. It was like, this guy's out like partying and like post, and I'm like, and like stuff that I paid for is not done. Like, and that's why I made sure to disclose it wasn't Pete, just in case he's editing this. And I was like, I'm like, damn, I wonder if I ever did that. You know what I mean? Like if I did that, like I certainly didn't do it intentionally.
Right. And that's the thing we have to be conscious of working online is like, how is this going to look? Because like you might have to do that, but you have to at least tell them that, like, oh, I got your check-in. Everything's great. I'm going to be working on it. Like maybe that post you see was planned hours before and it's set to go up. But this is like, you probably got coaching where you're literally refreshing email. Like, ooh, where are my updates? Where are my updates? And like, blame Amazon, blame all these businesses that are instant delivery now. That's just the world we're living in. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. But just understand there's coaches that will do it. And if I were to come back, I would probably still do a lot of that stuff, even though I think at this point, maybe I earned some boundaries and maybe I would put them in place. But I don't know. I think for me, it's still like people want to talk to you when they want to talk to you. And coaches think, and even my coaches, and I used to have to tell them like, you guys got to chill. It's not like this. They used to think virtually available at any time, which was what we said, meant 2 a.m. No one's texting you at 2 a.m. about breakfast. Like they're texting you really between normal business hours. It's just like,
and I always go over with coaches too. And like, people always like, you know, they're always texting me. I'm like, how'd they get your number?
Yeah.
Well, I gave it to them. Like,
good.
Well,
yeah.
And like, you know, and like, to my point is like, yeah, like as soon as you said, here's my number, text me if you need anything. That means text me if you need anything. Yeah. Like, it's not like, I can't believe I gave this guy my number and he texted me. I'm like, well, what did you think was going to happen? Like, you know, it's especially if they signed up for coaching, but it's funny that you said that about the refreshing. Cause I remember when I was doing like a bodybuilding competition. Do you remember Shelby Starnes in the nutrition? Well, he was my coach. And I remember like waiting to see what my, like, if it was the week that I was going to be able to have a cheat meal. Yeah. And I'm refreshing and it'd be like, nope, run it again next week. And I'm like, I know. Like I just clicked refresh for 6 hours and I got the same.
But even that is like, so we used to have coaches that were like, I didn't have to change anything, any numbers for 8 weeks. And I said, that might be good physiologically for that person. But what do you think they think when you don't make any adjustments? They think you're not doing anything. So you can, as a coach, you can add novelty into this stuff. And some, you know, hard-nosed evidence-based fit bros might be like, oh, well, that's pointless. Don't do that. But I'll say, well, what is this business? Is it just getting people results, or is it making them feel good as they get results? And I think that one of the best things a coach can do, whether it's fitness or nutrition, is to add novelty at times, as long as it doesn't make things worse.
So what's that look like? Cause I completely agree. Cause I know I've made that mistake of like someone not rehiring me. And I'm like, dude, you lost, you got exactly what you wanted. Yep. And they're like, you know, I was just looking for more. And like, I had to kind of take it on the chin as like a learning experience too, because I'm like, I would get so much, it was almost like an arrogance, like, hey, we're doing really well. Like we don't need to change anything. And they're almost like,
but I want something different.
So what would something like, if someone is doing well, let's say, and you know, you needed to add some novelty, what would that look like?
Yeah. For us, it could be a couple days a week. You could have higher carb days and lower carb days. Now, carb cycling, we know isn't really needed for results, but if it gets people excited and looking forward to a day where they can maybe have that bowl of cereal where they couldn't yesterday, that's awesome. That person is satisfied. That's a customer satisfaction play as much as it is like a coaching play. In fitness, if they're like, you know, they're 8 weeks into a squat program, maybe you go single leg for a couple weeks. So it's just stuff like that. It's like, you hate burpees. You think they're the worst thing in the world. okay, maybe they kick someone's ass for 2 minutes at the end of a workout. That person gets up and they're like, wow, that workout was amazing, because everyone remembers the end of the thing, not the beginning, you know? So it's just like that. I think coaches in general, and I'm like this a lot of times, it's like, this is the best thing. If somebody just did this, they'll be fine. But it's like, okay, this is a novel thing. Is it going to make them worse? No. Is it going to potentially make them more adherent and excited to open that email or to show up to the gym? Yes. Okay, then I think it's probably the best move.
Yeah, I'm glad this is recorded because I'm going to make some changes to some things based on this now. But
but there's people that push back. Oh, well, you shouldn't do that. You should just, if it's working, keep going. It's like, okay, tell me.
That just shows me that they don't coach as many people. Exactly.
Yeah.
It just shows me that they don't coach as many people or they coach a very niched, someone who's competing at a high level and doesn't care.
Yeah. Tell me what to do. I'll do it.
That's okay. But if your niche is people who want to compete in a bodybuilding show, you don't have to really, it's like, bro, eat 300 grams of this, do that. And then we'll tweak your cardio next week. And they're just going to do it. And then you're managing that. It's a completely different ballgame to work with general population people. I give that example to coaches all the time when we're doing like onboarding. It's like, listen, there are things that you will see, whether it is in coaching fitness or coaching nutrition, that will look very sexy or very precise, but just understand that if I had to use this in medical terms, those people are heart surgeons. Every single day they come in, they look at hearts and they have to do this one procedure and they are the best at that procedure. If you need that procedure, go see that guy. Yeah. But we're veterinarians, right? Like someone could bring a kangaroo in and then the next moment they got like a Shih Tzu and then you have an English Bulldog at 3:00 and you have to figure out like, okay, the principles of what I might be doing are all the same, but how do I get all of these different people with different backgrounds, different knowledges, different likes, interests to all move in the same direction? I'm not working with all baseball players who all want to throw 100 miles an hour. And if I say do this, they jump, right? Because their goal is to play in the major leagues. So their motivation, and I'm sure I'm generalizing, and someone who does that is going to be like, you think it's that easy? I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying it's more direct. So you can really streamline what you're doing. It just shows me that either they have a super niche clientele that they work with, or they don't actually coach as many people as they've said.
Right. So isn't it funny how when we give advice or say things, we always still have to think about like that one or two people that are going to say, well, actually, that's not true. And that's where I think like social and just information sharing has gotten. It's like, I've gotten to the point where I don't care now, but for a while, especially after I just sold, I think the industry was in a weird place where like even saying like, you'll be healthy if you lose fat was controversial. It made me think like, well, if I say this and it helps 200 people, but one person is offended, I can't do it. And I don't think that's the case as much anymore, but it's crazy how much we have to worry about those 1, 2, 3 people every time we say something.
Coming from an online background, my question would be, are we going to get to a point where AI just replaces the need for a nutrition coach?
Yes. So for some people, yeah. And I hope it does, because I think AI in that realm could be extremely helpful. Not only could it answer as good, if not better than most humans, I think it could be faster. Now, the only issue is
they would answer at 2 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. They would answer at 2 a.m. Now, the only issue is, what does the client want? Do they actually want a person and like a real connection? I don't know. So I think there are plenty of people that are going to go AI coaches. I mean, think about it. There's people that are dating AIs now. So do you think someone's not going to use an AI to give them nutrition or fitness advice? Right now, it's actually pretty good. I think it's going to get better. I don't know of anything that's actually really good yet, but I also might just not be exposed to it. So I think personally, that's something that I would actually like to be involved with. I think if someone was like, I want to build some tech based on like AI coaches, I think that's fascinating as hell, because I think there's a ton of people who don't care about the human side. They just want a really good answer and a good problem solver when they want it.
Yeah. And I think I don't disagree. The way that I use it now is basically like, my skill set is not helping you figure out what meal you might like for dinner. Yeah. I can help you narrow in how much, frequency, things like that. But I like it in that I can say like, hey, if you and I have a conversation and I get a good feel of what you like to eat on a daily basis, hey, do you like fish? Do you not like fish? Do you like meat? I don't eat meat, whatever. I can say, within a reasonable amount of error, hey, I need a 2,000 calorie a day diet that is 175 grams of protein. Mix the carbs and fat out however you want. They want to make sure that they can have a glass of wine on Friday and Saturday night and still be around that number. I want them to eat 3 times a day. And on the days that they work out, which are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, leave room for a shake that has this in it. Yep. It will spit out something that looks pretty good. At this point, what I've seen, to your point, it just kind of piecemeals blocks together. It's not creative to the sense where it's going to give a lot of thought to it. Like it's just going to say like, eat 4 ounces of chicken, right? A cup of broccoli and a cup of rice. It's not going to but I think with more and more help, what it needs is better questions. Yeah. Right. If you can imagine if I had a questionnaire for somebody without making the process too overwhelming, and I can ask them about all of their do you like Indian food? Do you like this food? Do you like whatever? And I could really narrow that down. If I could then put that in and say, now craft a menu. And I saw something up on your feed the other day about you like an Indian food. Yep. And it was like, imagine, you want to talk about customer delight. If you saw Tuesday night was a very simple Indian dish you could make at home and still be on track, you'd be like, this is freaking awesome, right? That might make it more complicated than it needs to be. And I think that's why you'll still need an expert to have to help you navigate that. But I think the technology there, the time saving element of it, or solving some of the creative issues, or all the logistical things, like if you make that meal plan, like there's a plugin to Amazon to where you can just say, and now make a shopping list based on that menu and have it shipped to my house. So all of those in betweens, I think will take a big step. And you could talk to it like you talk to your coach about all your challenges. It's not just like the meal planner thing. I've had people say, well, it couldn't tell me what, if my boyfriend is pressuring me to go out for pizza, it wouldn't have a good response. And I'm like, okay, well, let's see. So I crafted a message and I was like, shit. I said, that was probably better than anything I would have said, probably better than a lot of what our coaches would have said. And it was immediate. It happened immediately. I'm like, that's where people are like, oh, the machines can't have empathy. I'm like, let me share something with you. A lot of coaches don't have empathy. They just faked it too. So if a machine can fake it, if you feel good, does it matter if this machine actually is empathetic towards your situation? It's saying what you need to get over that hump. It has access to much more information than you or I are going to have. And it can, if it worked, it will never forget, and it will always going to be there. So I think it's a fantastic tool. I'm not quite there to say it's going to replace everything in terms of coaching, because like I said, I think at the end of the day, there are going to be certain people that are going to want to talk, but as a tool to assist coaches, I think there's a huge realm of what you could do, like talking about, trying to improve that customer satisfaction. Yeah. The soft skills. It can really, really improve on that, because none of the stuff that we talked about in this interview was like oh my God, I've never heard that before. It's really like, how do you get people to do it? And that's like, I think people think I have all these like crazy secrets, and I think I'm pretty underwhelming with all my insights, because people think that in order to create a story like this, you had to have some crazy cocktail of genius or some sort of, I guess, models that didn't exist. Even when we sold the business, they're like, well, what are the formulas? And I'm like, I don't think you guys get it. Like it's the community. It was the timing. It was the crazy founder. It was the cocktail of coaches that were just fucking monsters with this stuff. And that's what people need. They don't need something new. All the information that's ever going to help someone exists. You just have to package it up right. And that's where I think AI can do some of that stuff. I think it's going to replace quite a few people eventually. I'm fascinated by it, because I think ultimately the market is still letting the consumer down. Like coaches, especially online nutrition, are still failing people more than they're succeeding them. One of the things I wanted to make sure that we got in, that you and I talked about, I think back and forth maybe on Instagram a bit, is that like people are asking like, hey, how do I help build my business? Do I need to be doing Instagram ads? Do I need to be doing Facebook ads, running paid marketing through Google? I know, again, I don't know if it was exactly zero or close to zero, but most of what you built was through just getting good results, having good customer service. So what advice would you give to someone who's currently trying to build their sphere of influence or, build their online nutrition community or whatever it is, when they're looking to kind of grow, but through more organic means?
The number one thing I think coaches need to be doing is making sure their clients are getting results. I think people just aren't changing enough when they come through these people's virtual door, and there's nothing for them to refer to their friends and family. I mean, we created a bunch of walking and talking billboards, and it wasn't just the visual. It was like people just walking into somewhere and just being happier. People were like, "What are you doing?" And they're talking about it. So you have to harness that. You have to empower that. You have to give them business cards to hand out. You have to maybe create a referral program of some sort. We had 5 referrals, got you a free 12-week session. The magic behind that, which was accidental really, is a lot of people didn't get 5, but a ton of people got 1, 2, or 3. So that's just free marketing there. And I think people worry and try too much with all these fancy marketings, all these ads, all this stuff. We didn't really spend money, but we subsidize a lot of our marketing costs with just our lower costs and our attention in the right places. Like we just dominated Facebook groups before other coaches were in there. And we didn't go in there and post what was advice disguised as an ad, or an ad disguised as advice. We just went in there helping people. And I think one of our core competencies as a business was we like to do it whether the result was clients or not. We got off on helping people. And I think too many people are like, how do I get a client? How do I get a client? How do I get a client? And it's like, you need to ask, how do I help this person?
When there's so much information, it's very hard to try to sort out what is true and what's not and try to make a decision. Back when I was in college, so let's say 20 something years ago, I knew who the good coaches were. You know how? Because if I went to Jay Ferrugia's site, there were guys on there that looked one way in one picture, and the next picture they were shredded, or name whatever coach here. If I went to Zach, I'm a Jersey guy, so I'm naming Jersey people. If I went to Zach Evanish's, there was a kid who wasn't great at wrestling who was winning a state championship and was absolutely ridiculously strong, or so because that was the only thing you could rely on. There was no other way of there was no pointing to words on the thing and well, that person had a cool dance. Yeah. So I'm going to follow that person. It was no, if I'm looking for a coach to help me get X, I went to this person's website because I read an article they wrote on Elite or T Nation or any of these things that were around. And I was like, wow, this person's worked with, at least as far as I could tell, these 50 people, and they all got great results. This is exactly what I am looking for. And you could at least have some confidence. Now it's with the realm of how many people are an expert, the average person, they're never going to be able to decide with any sort of certainty. I think that's why referrals and that other stuff is even more important now, because you can't decide. You're going to go on Instagram and decide who's a good coach and who's not.
Based on what?
They're have no idea.
They're ripping apart someone else's Instagram video, doing some critique.
I'm so glad you brought that up. That's one of my biggest pet peeves is not only do I have to watch the video, now I have to watch the video of you watching the video. Yeah. I want to start a whole account of me watching the video of someone else watching and be Brad here is watching this video and, I think he did a good job critiquing. It's I'm watching videos of people watching videos. It's this 7th degree of inception.
And when you think of the customer coming across this, what are they going to buy? They're going to buy the opportunity to improve. They have to see other people like them. And that's where it's hard to do when you have no clients, but it was very easy to do when you had a bunch of clients, because you can use these people to spread your message for you. So I remember it was January 4th or 1st or one of these dates where it just gets wild. I went on our business page and I was like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you our program is awesome. I'll ask our clients to comment below whether you should come here or not. I, worded it way better than that, but I didn't tell people that we were great. I just posted that. And then I said, hey, if anyone wants to, comment to get more people on here. And we had before and after pictures being posted. We had hundreds of comments of happy customers on a post on our business page where most businesses are like, we're great. Come over here. I can coach you. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you that. I'll let our customers say it.
Because if you truly solved what was the biggest problem for someone in their life, there's nothing more than they're going to do than want to like, A, because they're proud they removed it. And then B, they're going to be more than happy to share that you and your company was the solution to it. So
you said the magic words. We do solve potentially the biggest problem in these people's lives. Like that's what coaches do. Like I've had a number of people tell me that. And I've had people say, other than marrying my wife, this was the best decision I've ever made. Like that's fucking crazy that we have that potential and you feel bad about sharing your work or what you do. You go to a party, someone asks what you do and you quiver and you don't know how to answer it. Like I would light up if I looked like bored and someone was like, what do you do? Oh man, it was like pulling my string. I was just yapping for 20 minutes. Like that's the passion that people need to have.
Mike, I feel like we covered a bunch of stuff, anyone from business to nutrition. As always, appreciate talking to you. Good stopping by. Where can people find you if they want to tag along?
Instagram's probably the best place at Mike Doehla.
Perfect. All right. Talk soon.
Cool.